would like to welcome Ms. Shweta Bhatia, who's a dietitian and a nutritionist, and she's also been an athlete herself. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Shweta, can you just tell us how is sports nutrition different from general nutrition? Because what I have experienced in my life is that a dietitian is normally helping you with getting over some issues, whereas a sports nutrition is helping you perform at your peak. So if you can just talk about that.
Right. So if you talk about illness to wellness and fitness, they're all on the same continuum, on the same spectrum. They're two ends of the same spectrum. So as you rightly said, a dietitian is meant to sort of, get you back on your feet if you're unhealthy. But a sports nutritionist is actually looking at a healthy person, reach his desired goals in performance, in sports performance. So it's very specific and very targeted. And the actual difference would be, since we're looking at performance is dependent on two things. One is your body composition, which means that you should be lean enough. A lot of people think that you can play a sport to be fit, but actually you need to be fit to play a sport, in my opinion. So you need to have a good, amount of muscle mass, be low on body fat. And of course, performance is also dependent on the availability of fuel during the workout or during your training or during the event. So both of these things are dependent on your diet, largely. So that's where sports nutrition comes into the picture. The other thing is that, supplements, they play a huge role in enhancing performance. We have hydration, we have supplements for recovery, we have them for fat burning, for joint health, for waste disposal, which is generated during an intense workout, for maintaining alertness, injury prevention, maintaining your blood pH, energy production. So there are so many things that come into play when you talk about an intense event or a workout. And supplements also become an integral part of an athlete's diet. So that's how it's different from general fitness or wellness.
There is a lot of talk on supplements like protein shakes, especially people who are vegetarian. They feel they're not having enough protein. What are the pluses and minuses of taking protein supplements?
Right. So when we talk about protein supplements, I do promote whey protein a lot because, it's a highly biological value protein, which means it's a first class protein. It has all the essential amino acids that an athlete should look at having in his meal plan. And it's an excellent recovery agent as well. So post-workout, I do definitely recommend whey protein for athletes. But where it fits in actually is, when you're not able to meet up your protein intake for the day. So as you know, that athletes do have a higher requirement and that has to be met. And sometimes it's not possible to eat that much protein through food. So that's when whey really comes in handy, especially when you travel, when athletes are on tours and things like that. Their ideal protein choices of first class proteins are not available sometimes at the venue. And that's when supplements do help again. The minuses, I would say, is that sometimes they are overestimated, the quantities, and they may end up taking a lot more than they require. So I feel like an expert can guide you and teach you how to match your protein intake with your workout intensity and your requirements for the day.
So, there are people who have 5-6 egg whites in a day, maybe 2 whole eggs, and 4 or 5. What do you have to say about that?
Right. So again, I promote the whole egg because the yolk does have a lot of other, components that you require, like choline and vitamins and things like that. Egg whites, again, for people who can't tolerate the yolk, but otherwise I recommend taking the whole egg. Now, the amount of eggs that you should consume in a day is again dependent on your total protein for the day. And these days I've been recommending the low carb, high fat approach for athletes a lot, and we've really used that with a lot of success across sports. So in that case, then the whole egg does have a great place because it comes in with the fat as well. So whether you should go in for egg whites or the whole egg, depending on the kind of diet that you're on, and of course the total protein for the day, including supplements and other choices like meat, fish or paneer or whatever other things that you include in your diet.
Right. My next question is on, a couple of supplements which you get to hear a lot about. One is glutamine and one is creatine.
Yes. Right.
So, if can you just talk a little bit on both these supplements, glutamine and creatine, because we know
Sure.
a lot of, especially golfers, uh, take that internationally.
That's right. So, talking about creatine first, let me explain what it is. It's a substance that's already present in your muscles, but the requirements go up a lot more because it actually takes part in the fuel systems in the body during the workout, and it helps in boosting power. So you have these quick, short bouts of activity which a golfer does have in his regime. That's where creatine comes into the picture. It also helps you to maintain your muscle mass. So it has a dual purpose. And the amounts, again, standard dose is 5 grams a day, but it again depends on your training schedule, and the timing is important. So I would recommend that you consult an expert. But it does have a place in your in an athlete's diet. Talking about glutamine, again, it works like an antioxidant. It's an excellent and recovery agent post workout. And I would recommend anywhere between 10 to 15 grams, again, depending upon the intensity of your workout. So they both do have a place in an athlete's diet.
Does creatine also absorb your the water in the body, and can it lead to cramps if you overdo it?
Right. No, so that is a myth that creatine leads to dehydration and causes cramps in the body. Cramps are basically sometimes not even related to hydration, they're just related to muscle fatigue. And there could be several reasons why an athlete cramps. So creatine is not one of those. What it does, it actually pulls in water into the muscle cell. So it actually hydrates your muscle cell. So I wouldn't say that it's dehydrating your body, but it does pull in some amount of water, but not to the extent that an athlete will cramp and be dehydrated.
Right. Also, what would you recommend? I mean, if a lot of people take multivitamins on a regular basis without consulting a nutritionist, how is it? Can multivitamins be dangerous also if you say you're taking a good brand? Even then, can it also be negative?
So, in terms of multivitamins and minerals, we need to understand again their function and their roles. Their job is basically to extract the energy from food and make it available to the body. So, the entire game is dependent on energy production. And if you are low on vitamins, you'll not recover. There'll be a high amount of oxidative stress. So, they also work as antioxidants. And you'll not be able to perform to that level. So, you can't be deficient for sure. And when we talk about the water soluble vitamins like vitamin C and B, there's really no toxicity that can come in with even a higher dose. But when we talk about the fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D, A, E, and K, that's where we need to watch out for the dosing. And that's when it can go above the range and be harmful. But it's very rare to be very high on vitamin E and K. Usually it's vitamin D that people end up taking a lot of, and then going on the higher end of the range.
Right. So, this is mainly for sports coaches. Uh, I'm not talking about fitness coaches, but sports coaches. So it could be a
Right.
badminton coach or a cricket coach or a
Right.
coach. How much knowledge should they have? I know, obviously, one should always recommend to a nutritionist, to their students to a nutritionist, but how much knowledge or what are the things that they should keep in mind?
So let me talk about two aspects when it comes to, or three rather, when it comes to a sports coach. One is the knowledge of training. So normally the coaches will provide sports specific skill training. That's what we see in India usually. But there are other components like strength, cardio, flexibility, accessory work to prevent overuse injuries, agility work, mobility drills that are specific for that activity. All these things also need to be included, and it will be really nice if the sports coach has enough knowledge on all these aspects and can include it in the athlete's training regime. Also, the coach needs to have knowledge about the various seasons in an athlete's annual cycle. So there is a pre-season, in-season, post-season, and off-season, because the structure, volume, intensity is all dependent on the phase of the calendar year that you're in. So that's extremely important. Coming to nutrition, I think it's again, like you said, it's best left to an expert because the diet has to be in sync with the training program to get optimal results. And again, because the training keeps changing, the diet also would change accordingly. And sometimes it's really too much knowledge for a sports coach to have and give that to an athlete. But he should know that these are relevant points of concentration and refer the athlete to someone. so that there is optimal results attained from a combination of training and nutrition. And I think the third most important and maybe the most neglected is sports psychology, where I feel that a coach has to understand where the athlete comes from and what are his pluses and weaknesses, and how he needs to sort of coach, train, and get the best performance from out of the athlete.
You know, today people just log on to the internet and do a lot of research and look for their diets, look for their supplements. But something that I have faced is we Indians have different kind of diets, right? So the dal, the rice, the aloo, and the paneer. You don't really find that. So if I had to ask you on a broad-based question, there are three parts to this question. One is, what should an athlete who's got a important match the next morning have for dinner, and in a very rough way, and what he would have in the during breakfast, and if he's allowed to snack, like if he's playing tennis or golf, then you can snack, what you have during competition and what you have for recovery. So maybe four parts to this question, but from an Indian point of view, because everything you see on the net is, people are talking about steaks and people are talking about noodles and pasta, but no one is really talking about the Indian food.
Right. So again, I'd like to break this up into two parts. And again, the awareness on this aspect is very low, and I'm trying to create an awareness through my videos on this topic as well. A lot of people think that to enhance performance, you need to have a lot of carbohydrates, because that's what we've been following. And the studies that are done, even if you look at a lot of the journal articles, are based on high carb diets. But it's changing, and low carb, high fat diets are the in thing right now for sports performance. And like I said earlier, that we've achieved a lot of success across sports, especially for the endurance events and athletes who are on field for about 7-8+ hours. It works beautifully because fat is actually a very efficient fuel. So you get 9 calories per gram when it burns, whereas carbs are a limited source, and you have to keep fueling and refueling during your matches, during your events, because you're running out all the time. So if you are on a low carb, high fat diet, and which you should be for months before your training, because you just can't talk about it on the last day or a week before your competition, then your pre, during, and post would change. And if you are on a high carb diet, which again you would have been through the training phase, and that's what you would again do on your competition day, then the pre, post, and during regimes would differ. So let me talk about the first one. Which is if you are on low carb, high fat, then of course it's always going to be a combination of protein and fat. In terms of the Indian context, we can have, before the event, we can have simple things like egg whites, or you can even do a whey protein shake actually before, and you can add some fat like MCTs and things like that. The reason why I'm talking about supplements here again is because if you're on a high carb, it's very easy to get in things like oats or a chila or a moong dal dosa, or a paratha or some rice-based poha or something of that sort. If you are on a high-carb diet, if your body composition allows you, that means if you're already good on your body fat and you don't really need to cut down further, then in that case, those are the options. Again, it depends upon the amount of time that you have to your competition, because sometimes I see that athletes have just an hour prior, or sometimes you have an hour and a half. So again, that would change. But there has to be a carbohydrate source if you're on a carb-based diet, and a protein source, which is like maybe eggs or a protein shake. I wouldn't recommend things like paneer and all in the morning, because it's a bit heavier on the gut before your event. And if you are on a low carb, high fat plan, then of course it would be eggs. Those are the ideal choice for breakfast or a pre-competition meal. During, again, the need for snacking goes away if you are on a low carb diet, because there's so much fat burning that there is no drop in fuel. You don't really need to refuel. But if you are on a carb-based diet, then of course you can do these carbohydrate bars. You can do sports drinks, which play a dual role of giving you the hydration, the electrolytes, and the carbohydrates. Sometimes there is a break between the two parts of the match, so like a halftime or whatever, and then they have a break that can actually snack on something. You can do things like peanut butter in that time, again, depending on the amount of break that you get, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or about half an hour or 1 hour. If it's a longer break, then of course there'll be a meal that comes in at that point. Post-workout and during workout, you can also have amino acids like branched-chain amino acids that come in. Glutamine can be added in your hydration drinks. Post-workout, definitely whey would be my first choice because, like I said, it's a recovery agent and you need to start giving in raw material for your muscles to recover. In terms of the carbohydrates post-workout, a lot of people again think of banana and things like that, but it's really not recommended. You don't need to take it. There is enough scope for the glycogen to be replenished later through carbohydrates that come in with the meals after the workout is over as well or the event is over. But if you have to take it, then you must take it here. So I don't talk about fruits coming in the second and third meal after your workout is over. It should be just right after, if at all. And again, fruits are not recommended pre because they've got very less carbohydrates and they're simple carbs mainly. So if you want to last on a carbohydrate diet, you should be taking more complex sources like your grains and your pulses. So that those would be your choices. Yeah.
So when you watch a tennis match and you see the changeover, you always find the guy taking a bite of a banana.
Correct.
So I would like to know between a banana and a protein bar, what would be the plus and minuses of both if you compare the two.
Right. I would definitely suggest a protein bar, and protein bar not made of soy but whey protein, because a lot of protein bars these days are marketed as protein bars, but they've got a lot of carbohydrates again and very low quality protein and very low amounts of protein. So that's very important that you select the right kind of protein bar. Between the two, yes, a protein bar, because there is a constant need for amino acids also to be generated in the body during the workout. And that a small bite of banana is actually not going to do much for you. It's just more a psychological effect that, okay, I've had something which will bring my energy levels up. But you can achieve that through a hydration drink, like I said, which is a very convenient way of replenishing your carbohydrates, stores, and your electrolytes and the water. So for that, I would recommend a carbohydrate drink, if at all, if you're on carbs. During the workout, if you get time, you should definitely replenish and grab for more protein sources. Unless you've had branched-chain amino acids or glutamine in your drinks again.
Right. And what would be a good drink? Like people drink Gatorade, some people say coconut water. So if you can give us, these 3-4 things that you could drink.
Right. So the hydration drink selection depends on the duration of the event. So if it's something that we're looking at beyond an hour and a half or 2 hours and it's continuous, then coconut water is not recommended because it's very high in potassium and low in sodium. And in these long duration events, you need to replenish both. So in that case, I would recommend an electrol or a Gatorade more versus a coconut water. But if you're just sort of playing, your duration is well within an hour and a half, under 90 minutes, then a coconut water or nimbu pani with a little salt is also fine. Should be enough.
Right. So there's a lot of talk that Gatorade may be very high on sugar, or any of these drinks. Is it true? Or?
So Gatorade typically has a 6% carbohydrate, composition, which is the ideal, as per studies, required for the gut to pull in the sodium as well. So it's not too high, but again, like I said, your needs may differ. So not everybody needs to put down 1 liter of Gatorade in an hour. So with my athletes, what I do is typically start them off on a regime with the lowest amounts possible, see how they perform, and do a weigh-in, which is very important for an athlete who plays for a long duration. You weigh yourself before, you weigh yourself after. You see how much fluid you've consumed during the workout or during the event, and then you see the weight difference actually gives you a gauge of the sweat rate. Then we start correcting the hydration intra-workout, and then we keep adding things to see how they perform. And we're not looking at a weight loss of more than a kg or 2 finally. Anything over about 2 kgs, you will see that there was a performance drop in these cases. If the athlete can manage it within 1 or 2 kgs, then most of the times there will be no performance drops.
I've noticed that in my tournaments, especially peak summer, where I weighed myself and it's been like almost a couple of kgs. Feel happy about it, but that's basically your body fluids, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
And again, another misconception is that you need to keep drinking water. But if you keep drinking water with a very high sweat rate and don't put the salts back, your kidneys will keep flushing the water out. So you're still dehydrated because you're diluting your blood further. So long duration events, especially when you're losing a lot of weight after your training, you need to add the salts in the right amounts with water.
This is my final question. If you had to recommend five superfoods, 5 things that anyone to be healthy to include in their diet, what would those 5 things be?
Oh my God, that's a tough one. Okay, foods that are rich in omega-3, like your fish and nuts and seeds. Foods with healthy fats like avocado and again nuts. Nuts are always going to be a part of almost every option that I speak of. Good quality protein sources like your eggs, chicken, fish, paneer for vegetarians, or whey protein. That's 3. For your vitamins and minerals, I recommend actually a supplement, because again, people think that they can get enough through food, and that's that's a big myth. It's a huge challenge to get your required daily requirements through food. So there has to be a supplement in. And the 5th would be a probiotic as a superfood. Yeah, a mixture of a pre and a probiotic. So if you're not taking supplements, and maybe you can add a bowl of curd or something like that can be added.
Right. So is curd recommended in the evening, or do you have it during your lunchtime?
Absolutely. You can have curd any time of the day. It's just specific to that person. If he cannot tolerate or he gets symptoms by having curd in the evening, then avoid it by all means. You can have it in the day. But there's no specific study saying that it should not be taken at night.
Finally, so, before we end this, what would you advise all young athletes when it comes to the nutrition part? Just a very basic advice, because we have a lot of kids, who just binge on chips and cokes and chocolates, ice cream. So what would you tell all the young athletes?
So I've had, really young athletes, and it's such a pleasure to watch the kind of dedication that they bring onto the table. It's amazing. When I tell them that this is what you need to eat and you're just stuck with these choices, they just do it and they just follow it to the T. So that's amazing. And I wish that, Indian athletes, and as we see that they're performing so well, even on the international stage, I wish they pay more attention to their nutrition, because it's so important for performance enhancement. And especially for young athletes, because they have a growth phase also that comes in along with the demands of exercise. So the amounts of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, supplements, all of that needs to be, fine-tuned and be managed by an expert. Coming down to the junk, see, again, there is this thing that, because we work out so much, we can eat whatever we want. It doesn't work like that, because junk does cause a lot of damage to the body in the later years. So a small amount, yes, maybe after a competition, or you've achieved you can give yourself a treat, maybe if you've really performed well, or even if you've not performed well. But the reliance on those foods must be much less, and your dedication and discipline has to be top notch if you want to perform with your diet and your training. Yeah.
So just 2 more questions, because they've come to my mind while we were talking. One is intermittent fasting. How beneficial or how effective is it? That's one. And people say that, you have one binge day. How does that work as far as from the nutritionist angle?
The intermittent fasting, again, you may have seen my video that I'm, I promote it a lot, because the whole idea is to keep your insulin low and allow your fat to burn for as long as it can, because fat is the primary source of fuel at rest. So when I'm sitting right now, I'm burning fat. So if I can actually prolong that period, then yes, I'm, mobilizing my body fat stores. But the thing with intermittent fasting is what you eat in the remaining 8 hours. So people think again that they can put in anything into the 8 hours and fast for 16 hours. It doesn't work like that. It has to have a structure, and whatever you do in those 8 hours has a carry on the remaining 16 hours. So maybe for an athlete, if you look at an athlete, say in their off season, they do follow an intermittent fasting pattern, because maybe their training is not that much and they want to cut down on body fat, but there'll be some amount of training and they need to recover. So that 8-hour window that they get during their feeding time is something that they should look into as a structured plan, and make sure they're meeting all their requirements in those 8 hours. So that's one about intermittent fasting. And the second thing is about the binge. Well, by all means, if your body allows it, I always say that do what your body allows you, because if you see that those binges are causing your blood sugar to elevate, or it's causing your body fat to go up in the long term, then your body's already telling you that it's enough. So yeah, once in a while you can treat yourself, preferably on a workout day, maybe in the first part of the day when you're more active, and not allow it to go into the night. Binge drinking is definitely out. That is something I don't recommend at all. And I will be putting up another video on alcohol soon. But yeah, as far as food is concerned, if you have like a good disciplined regime, 90%, 95% of the times, a binge won't really harm you once in 15 days or once a week.
Right. So thank you so much, Shweta. It was great
Thank
talking to you.
you.
I'm sure
Same
we'll be
here.
doing a few more.
Definitely. I look forward to that.